Steve Kretzman. I'm director of Oil Change International, an organization that particularly highlights the activities of the oil industry around the world. But in the course of that work over the last 20 years, I have had occasion to work in partnership and solidarity with many indigenous communities around the world. And I first became aware of the Indigenous Rights Declaration in 1992, when my colleague and friend Ken Saro-Wiwa addressed the working group in Geneva on behalf of the Ogoni people. And at that time, it was very clear that the rights of his people and those of peoples throughout the world, and particularly the Niger Delta, were being trampled upon in the name of the thirst for oil that those of us in industrialized nations have. Shell oil was very guilty there of many heinous crimes, and ultimately of collaboration in Ken Saro-Wiwa's death and the death of many people in the Delta. And unfortunately, in the course of becoming acquainted with that struggle, it became clear to me that this was sadly not an isolated incident, that actually we've seen this kind of struggle around the world, around indigenous peoples and resources. And so I've been working on these kinds of issues since that time. It's very clear that the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, passage of that would be a huge step forward, and it would mean that we no longer we were not so much back on our heels for fighting these battles, and there would be real systemic international support for the rights of indigenous peoples, which is desperately, desperately needed. Unfortunately, New Zealand is one of the countries that is opposing this in the United Nations today, and personally, I think it's if New Zealand doesn't rectify its position, it's going to be one of the darkest chapters in New Zealand history, not unlike when the Rainbow Warrior was sunk in Auckland Harbor. I was at the time working for Greenpeace at that time, and that's unfortunately one of my major associations with New Zealand, is that great tragedy at that time. So certainly we hope that New Zealand can change its position, and we certainly would do everything we can to get the declaration passed, and people can go to priceofoil.org to get information about these issues, and hopefully to get more up to date on the declaration as well in the coming weeks.